Welcome back to a brand new episode of Jori Sports Stories. As always, I'm your host Jori, and once again, we have a lot to talk about this week. On today's agenda, we covered the ongoing NBA offseason buzz, recent transactions, and more. And then we head on over to the NFL as we prepare for training camp. Stay tuned for Titans talk, and we break down the NFC East and give our outlook. Stay tuned for Lakers talk as well, and there also may be some rants in store. So, like I said earlier, we got some things to talk about, so turn your volume up, tune in, and let's get it. This week, we're going to start this episode off a little bit funny. Usually we start off in the NBA, but first we're going to take our talents to the NFL for a change. This week may make some people mad. We're discussing the NFC East and my projected outlook. Cowgirls fans beware. Giants fans beware. We got Titans talk, early hot takes, and more. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And so we're going to start our outlook of the NFC East, and we're going to start with the Dallas Cowboys. So some of my biggest questions going into this season is, who is the pressure on, for the most part? And Dak and Super Bowl expectations and realistic questions surrounding this team and expectations. So the pressure is mainly balanced between Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott. I believe Mike McCarthy is 1A, Dak Prescott is 1B, but you may feel the need to switch, and that's on you. But why? Why is there so much pressure to win in Dallas? Well, one, Jerry Jones wants to see a Super Bowl before he kicks the bucket, so he's not getting any younger. That man is pushing 90, so the time is clearly running out. But if we're being completely realistic, the Dallas Cowboys haven't done anything worthwhile since before I was born. So I don't know why people keep getting their expectations and their hopes up just to go to the second round of the playoffs and fail. But like I said, if the Dallas Cowboys with all of their talent fail to reach the NFC Championship game one more time, the part of the reason is coaching conundrums, then Mike McCarthy will be on the hot seat, if not gone. That's a real possibility, knowing how Jerry Jones operates. He has a known habit, as we've seen for the past 2 seasons: clock mismanagement, questionable game plans, and play calling. And not having this team ready to play in certain games. Like last season, they weren't ready to play that game versus Washington. And there was a few times where you could point at the Dallas Cowboys as not being ready to play. And when do these things usually culminate? Oh, at the end of the season and in the playoffs. So it's kind of like Mike McCarthy has like this difficulty maintaining discipline for a whole season. That's an issue. That's a concern. And then you have 2 playoff exits on questionable play calling and poor execution. And you can blame Kellen Moore all you want to, but whose idea was it to line up Ezekiel Elliott at center and get him killed? And it wasn't even ran right. Bottom line, the offensive side of the ball needs to improve, which I think it will, but it also requires somebody else who's under pressure to improve as well. Because it has to improve despite Dak's inconsistency, because we know what Dak Prescott is. They need to go further in the playoffs despite his inconsistency, and I think that's a very hard task. I think that's a reach. I borderline don't think that's possible. So there's the pressure on Mike McCarthy. Now on to Dak Prescott. We're going to debunk Dak and explain why he's under pressure, because some people just don't get it. I don't know what's going on here, but all right. What really is Dak Prescott as a quarterback, as an NFL quarterback? Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take note of all of my words that I'm getting ready to spew out. He's an average quarterback, average to slightly above average. He is not elite. He is not as immensely talented as a Patrick Mahomes or a Jalen Hurts. He is not worth $160 million, but they had to overpay him because that's what you got. He's more of a technician, using his head to at times slice and dice a defense. He is not one of those that you trust at the end of important games. He can win you regular season games, even though at times he looks very dicey. But from a 7-year sample size, we should be able to thoroughly conclude that he is not good enough to get them over a hump that they're facing. He's not good enough because when the lights shine the brightest, Dak puts on his dunce cap. It's like he forgets how to be a good quarterback. Sometimes you can't even get good at it, Dak. And then y'all are talking about we're going to get into the turnovers in just a second, because I'm going to debunk that for all of y'all in just a second. But we're going to talk about some myths. Knowing what Dak is, in my eye, he could be elite. If he's elite in your eyes, I want you to get your eyes checked. If he's elite in your eyes, go get him checked. Because ain't no E in Dak for elite. No. So, some common myths about Dak. Especially, this is one that I've heard all year. And as far as Dak Prescott's defense. He's not turnover prone. Are you serious? Like, are you serious? For somebody that in 4 out of 7 seasons has had double-digit interceptions, fumbled 52 times, lost 25 of them, and has led the league in fumbles twice. The only difference between this past season and others is that he stopped putting the ball on the ground and just started giving it to the other team. He's still turning the ball over. He's just finding another way to do it. There is no logical reasoning that Dak is not turnover prone, because he is. He just switched forms. Fumbles to picks. And sometimes you get a pick six. And sometimes you might get a fumble and a pick, because ball security's never been his thing. So face it, Dak is turnover prone. Another misconception about Dak. I don't understand why we're having this whole big old global hoopla about it, but the Dallas Cowboys can win a Super Bowl with Dak. No, they can win one in spite of Dak, not with him. Dallas has the potential to win a Super Bowl in spite of Dak Prescott. They're that talented. But like I said, when the lights shine brightest, Dak plays the dumbest. So we have 7 years. And he forgets how to be a quality quarterback all of a sudden. They have all the talented pieces that they need. They pretty much built this team around Dak and Zeke from when they had him. But for how long? If they could do it with Dak, an argument could be made that they would have already done it at this point. 7 years. Rational people know what it is. This is why people think Cowboys fans are delusional, because you guys don't listen. Now, as far as Dak in being under pressure, why is he under pressure? Because there's a big question right there. Can he not be the reason why the Cowboys lose a critical game? They're the Cowboys. They're going to do it. They're going to get everybody's hopes up just to fail. They've done it for all 22 years of my life. They've done it for the past... Come on now. All 22 years. I wasn't even thought of the last time they did something worth a while. Which was, 28 years ago? So can he not be the reason why the Cowboys lose a critical game? Because it's going to happen. Whether it's inconsistent play, turnovers, overthrows, underthrows, dangerous throws, bad decisions. When the Cowboys lose in the second round again, can Dak not be the reason why? And like I said, the pressure thing, another thing he's under pressure about is, can he get this turnover thing under control? Knowing that he's a turnover machine. Excuse me. Knowing that he's a turnover machine. And that he just changed turnover mechanisms from putting the ball on the ground to throwing picks. Even though he was always throwing picks. But I don't know why the whole misconception of Dak Prescott being so incredibly ball secure is a phenomenon to me, because he's never been ball secure. But at this point, I highly doubt it. Once again, we are 7 years in. Usually, we know what a player is come year 3. This is why I have another problem with Josh Allen. But we're going to get into that in just a second. Now, they're going to need him to keep the ball out of the other team's hands better this year. I think he will continue to work on his decision-making at important times. But he will still have a turnover issue. We're being realistic here. He will still have a turnover issue. I promise you, I will shave off half my eyebrow if you don't have at least... Actually, let's not do that. We're not going to do that. But I'll figure out something. If he don't have at least 10 picks this season, consider it fixed. But he's going to have at least 10. I already know that for a fact. And with Dak and other expectations, let's be real. We have got to stop expecting the Dallas Cowboys to do great things without a great quarterback. They have a good quarterback, not a great one. Second round of the playoffs will always be this team's ceiling, since they can't seem to make it past it. I thoroughly expect them to have a good season and squander another playoff game in the second round. But who will be to blame? Dak, coach, Tony Pollard, the defense. I expect the defense to continue to show its ugly head. That defense is going to get a little bit better, I believe, if that's even possible. But Michael Parsons is moving to the edge so he could put his hand in the dirt and go to work. But that's neither here or there. But when they get to the second round of the playoffs again next year and lose, and it's Dak's fault, he out of there. I don't know how, but he'll be out of there or on his way out. And he got a contract type of situation coming up again. He better play like his life begins on it, because I believe it do. Realistic questions that I have about this team. If this season doesn't go to plan, what's going to change? Is Mike McCarthy going to be gone? Is Dak going to be gone? Are both of them going to be gone? Are they going to just blow it up? If Dak doesn't play well, what's next for him? Do they still pay him? Do they go start over? We will know some of the answers to these questions after they start playing football. But these are just like some outlooks that I have. How will Dallas go about the business of keeping their stars aligned and happy, especially on defense? A lot of people, I don't know how... they have a cap space, and there's some big paydays coming. And I don't think Dallas is going to be able to keep all them boys on his roster. So right now, I would like to think that if they do not get any further than the second round of the playoffs, or get to a NFC Championship game, it's over. This window would have been squandered. Even though I never really thought they had a Super Bowl window, because they always got to the second round of playoffs and failed. But other than being 8-8, but that's beside the point. They will be a playoff team, number 2 in the division, but they're not going to do much else after. Period. And now we're going to look at the Philadelphia Eagles. My biggest questions for the Eagles are, what are the expectations? Has Jalen Hurts arrived? And how did they improve? So let's break this down. I want all Philadelphia Eagles fans to temper the irrational ones, which I might as well go ahead and say all of them. But I have a few that are pretty nice. Temper the expectations, but still be very confident because this team has managed to pull off some straight up wizardry. They've improved a loaded defense. You're not worried about your quarterback, but be cool. But temper your expectations. They should be a favorite, but let's play ball and let's see. Side note, they were ahead of the game by paying Jalen now as rather as to later, cough, cough, Baltimore. And Howie Roseman is just a great general manager, by the way. And they bought Darius Slay back on a pretty decent deal, but we'll talk about deals and stuff like that in just a second. Jalen Hurts. My little spill on Jalen Hurts. There should be little to no doubt that Jalen Hurts has arrived. Any questions? Should have been answered the way he's improved over the past year or two has enabled this team to flourish. And then you pair that with some favorable moves like trading to go get A.J. Brown. You draft Devontae Smith. You build up that defense. And much to contrarians' belief, Jalen Hurts can throw the ball. He should have shown that. And eliminated all doubts. He can throw the ball. Now, as far as improvements that the Philadelphia Eagles have made, these moves speak for themselves. Just listen. Agreed to terms on a 1-year contract with their defensive end, Brandon Graham. Agreed to terms with cornerback James Bradberry on a 3-year contract. Signed Fletcher Cox to a 1-year deal. Agreed to terms on a 2-year contract with cornerback Darius Slay. Signed safety Terrell Edmonds to a 1-year contract. They drafted Nolan Smith, drafted Kelly Ringo, acquired DeAndre Swift. Do I really need to say in what ways they've improved? And they've done more things than that, I believe. I just haven't listed all of them. But that, when you think about what they have with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, Kelly Ringo, they pretty much have the Georgia Bulldogs defense on that roster. They've acquired nice pieces via trade and free agency, i.e. DeAndre Swift. And they kept most of their core together. What I didn't manage is that Kelsey's coming back for another year, so they get to keep their center. They're keeping, I believe, Lane Johnson, Yeah. This team is setting itself up for sustained success, but I don't know what they're going to be after next year, because I believe next year they'll have to start looking at their offensive line, but I'm not going to get too ahead of myself when it comes to this team. Next, we're going to talk about the Commanders' conundrums. The Washington Commanders. How hot is Ron Rivera's seat in real life? What's the quarterback situation? Will the lack of dysfunction improve the product on the field? Ladies and gentlemen, we're on hot seat alert. Ron Rivera's seat should be as hot as the sun right now. He's a perfect candidate. Actually, in fact, he's a perfect candidate not only for a firing, but a mid-season firing. And you know, when coaches get fired mid-season, you know the ownership has had enough. And Washington has new ownership. So we all know that it's coming. But here's the thing. He's fulfilled some of those firing ingredients. And when I say firing ingredients, things that usually happen to coaches that get them fired. 1, a quarterback carousel. 2, lack of visible improvement. 3, dysfunction. This is not Ron Rivera's fault. The dysfunction is not. But some things are. Okay? So, I'm going to touch on the quarterback carousel. Like, why haven't they been able to hit on the quarterback? You've had Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, Sam Howell. And I believe Dwayne Haskins have Lord rest his soul. They're all average to below average at best. And how many times are you gonna wear your defense down game by game? And you're not an attractive free agent destination because of your quarterback situation. I don't understand that. Like, Washington has some pieces. Washington has a running game. They have receivers. They have a defense that'll keep people from scoring. It's just that the offense can't get it together. And I understand that Ron Rivera is not an offensive-minded coach. But that's why I'm thinking that Eric Bieniemy, because Eric Bieniemy is their new offensive coordinator now. I believe that was a move to kind of try to save Ron Rivera's job, but he's still on the grill. His seat is popping hot. They haven't done anything. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Lack of visible improvement. It's the same old with this team. Past 3 seasons. 2020, when they went to the first round, when they went to the playoffs, and they were first in the NFC East, they were 7-9. 2020, that whole division was putrid. 2021, 7-10. 2022, 8-1. Where is the improvement? I can understand if you were 2-12 and 4 and if you were 3-13, 3-14. Yeah, there's 17 games. 3-14, and then you turn around and be 5-12 the next season. I understand that. That's improvement. But what is this? What is this? So in 3 years, you've had a losing record, which doesn't seem to improve. The lone playoff appearance was due to a putrid division. And you've been third or last in the division outside of 2020 since 2016. And your on-field product hasn't improved much since then. Now we're going to talk about the dysfunction of this organization. Now this, we can't pin entirely on Rivera. Dan Snyder ran this organization into the ground between emails and the scandals and scandal after dark cloud. This is not Ron Rivera's fault. But what is his fault is not providing quality games, play calling, adequate coaching, not knowing when your team is in the playoff, where your team is in the playoff picture, questionable quarterback coaches, and you've had some questionable sound bites. Now, granted, Dan Snyder really put the Commanders under stress. They were asking that man about stuff that he had no business even having an answer for. And in a way, you kind of felt bad for him because how are you supposed to concentrate on football and people are asking you about emails? That doesn't alleviate your loyal to a fault fan base from agonizing defeat and the front office dysfunction. And some of these games that they're losing are winnable games. Bottom line, Ron Rivera's hot seat with bringing in new owners and such is more like a broiler, especially if they fail to win 10 games. The magic number is 10. Now, what is their quarterback situation since we're talking about it? So their starter is presumably Sam Howell, who reeks of average to below average, but he's also in competition with Jacoby Brissett. The backups are Jake Fromm, Tim Demerat, and whoever wants to start a job, the other one's going to be a backup. In other words, tell Ron Rivera to start packing his stuff now, because that's not going to work for very long. In that division, no. The division has gotten better. That division has definitely gotten better. And then, if the lack of dysfunction will improve the quality of the on-field play. I hope so, in all honesty. Hopefully a stable front office will equate to starting a winning culture and winning games. But only time will tell. But I have I have optimistic hopes for the future for this organization because it's not like they're talent devoid. They have talent. They're not the Cardinals, I can tell you that. And next, we're going to talk about the Giants. Their biggest questions: Daniel Jones, wide receivers, Saquon Barkley, other concerns. Daniel Jones. Like Dak Prescott. Well, not like Dak Prescott. Dak is better than Daniel Jones. But Daniel Jones is an average quarterback who Saquon Barkley made look good. Yes, I just said it. Saquon Barkley made that boy look good. Daniel Jones is average. And yes, he's kind of a threat with his legs, but really, his career, he's 60 to 34 turnover to interception ratio with an 86.5 QBR. He's capable, but he's not a game-changing quarterback and will cost you games as well. We've seen that as well. He's useful and he's capable, but talent-wise, he's limited. So that's your starting quarterback. Now, to build the rest of this team around him, including Saquon. We'll get on Saquon in just a second because I don't think this deal is going to let me rephrase it. I think that this is going to cut into the season, knowing what I know. But, like I said, we're not going to go there. The receivers. The wide receivers. Who are their wide receivers? Mine is rookie Jalen Hyatt and often injured Sterling Shepard. Who are the receivers? Well, Darius Slayton is talented, but they don't have a true number one receiver. So that's clearly an area of concern. Your receiver room, for the most part, is unproven. Even though we know what Sterling Shepard is capable of when he's healthy, even then, it hasn't really been conducive to winning football games, if we're being completely honest. You have a very talented rookie and a scrapyard of project receivers, which are pretty much unproven. So there's your receiver room right there. And then we have Saquon Barkley. To be real, if we're going to be completely real here, the Giants were attempting to do Saquon dirty, paying both Daniel Jones and Dexter Lawrence first. They should have got him out the way first. And they had a decent deal. $14 million a year on the table. But they had to do Giants things and piss off the person that made you look better than what you actually are, which is mediocre at best. Especially what he did behind that putrid O-line. Their O-line was barely better than mine, and I can tell you mine was horrible. That O-line was not ranked anywhere behind 23, which is not good. Anywhere before 23. And hopefully they can get him signed before camp. But look at the date. Like I said a few episodes ago, y'all said that y'all have confidence in getting this deal done before training camp. Newsflash, it's July 12th. Training camps will get ready to start soon at the end of the week, I believe. Or next week. This was completely avoidable. Other major concerns about the Giants. Your O-line is subpar, and you've done very little to address it. Now, I think Evan Neal, my Bama baby, he did struggle a lot last year, but because of the type of competition he was facing, he was thrown into the fire. I believe he'll improve. Hopefully, he's been in the lab, getting stronger, because those are the type of people you're going to have to face 2 times a year, big dude. I'm going to need you to get it together. But they've done very little to address it. Can Daniel Jones accurately air it out? Can this team, including Saquon, stay healthy? And can they stop the run better? And can the corners consistently step up? So I feel like the Giants, in all actuality, they think they're close, but they're a few. And this is for the Giants fans out there. You guys think you're closer than you actually are. Quit being delusional and stop antagonizing me. Thank you. And now, we're going to head to Nashville, Tennessee, and we're going to talk my Titans. Lord. Offseason behavior has been borderline embarrassing. Between Dennis Daly, who's now a Cardinal, getting dunked on by a stripper in the DMs, to Nicholas Petit-Frere, our starting right tackle or right guard, got popped for gambling for 6 games. And then you have Hassan Haskins, who caught a domestic violence charge because him and his ex-girlfriend got to fighting. Ladies and gentlemen, keep your hands to yourself unless you need to. I hope this undisciplined, unaware BS doesn't happen in the season. And it doesn't need to follow when it counts. That dang on Nicholas Petit-Frere cost himself and the team 6 weeks because of his foolishness. Grow up. And as far as Hassan Haskins, I ain't got no comment about that. They can release him tomorrow and he can go. And now we're going to talk about my wide receivers because I understand, like you see how I broke down the Giants wide receivers? I understand that my team has some holes in our wide receiver room. And that is partially due to John Robinson trading away A.J. Brown. I don't know how many times I have to explain that. I'm like, that was a franchise-altering trade. And that pink, rosy-faced, chubby-cheeked clown ruined my franchise. Well, not ruined it. He turned it. He turned it completely on his head. Oh, my Lord. But, okay, so here's some of my wide receivers. I have Treylon Burks, who I believe will be taking the next step within a year or two. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, you'll hear about what I hear about him, what I think about him in just a second. Colton Dowell, Chris Moore, Kyle Phillips, Racey McMath, Mason Kinsey, and Jacob Copeland. And we could add D-Hop. Now, if we add DeAndre Hopkins, I promise you, my team that got a lot a bit scarier. Because now you got DeAndre Hopkins on one end, Treylon on the other. You got Chig as my tight end, and then you got Derrick Henry as my running back. With Ryan Tannehill, who is actually very accurate, contrary to popular belief. He's not a trash quarterback, and he's top 10 in throwing inside the numbers. And he's pretty much top 15 in throwing outside the numbers. So he can throw the ball. He can air it out. Don't know where the whole common misconception is with that. But that type of offense is scary. I don't know what they have planned. I'm excited to see it. I can't wait for training camp. But this is not about that. This is about what I think about my wide receivers. Treylon Burks. A true number one. Takes number one coverage, can separate, and is looking towards improving off of a very decent rookie year. He'll be a number one target this year. Hopefully he can make that next step. He's healthier. He looks stronger. He looks a tad bit faster. I'm excited about what Treylon Burks will do. Next, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I like him personally. He's a solid WR2 or WR3. He has selective catching ability. And he can separate at times, but he's just not as consistent enough to be a true threat on the field. Racey McMath, a true speedster who can't stay healthy, therefore limiting how often we see him on the field. Once again, wide receiver number 3 material, also tends to struggle with some selective catching ability. And what I mean by selective catching ability, it means butterfingers. Kyle Phillips, either a hit or a miss. We saw flashes of what he could be. Just catch the ball, bro, and stay healthy. Catch the ball. He's more of a solid WR2 than Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is, if you ask me. He can be a threat on the other side for like little gimmick plays. Chris Moore, the new addition, doesn't have the whole selective catchability thing going. He'll catch it. I trust his hands more. And he's a speedy receiver. I believe he came from Houston. Who has pretty good separation. The one thing I'm so keen on about my wide receivers this year is separation. Because last year, there was pretty much none of it. None of it. None of it. Mason Kinsey, he can't stay healthy or see the field for whatever reason. So I want him off my team. Personal opinion. Personal opinion. Collective, they're unproven as a whole. Hopefully we can get D-Hop, which would help develop this room quite nicely. I expect Treylon Burks to capitalize off of last year's momentum. And then you have to add the tight ends, which I did not. We have Chig, and Chig is pretty much a beast. And now, the stigma and the disrespect that surrounds this team is like that I've never heard of before in my life. Why is everybody in this goddamn dang on TV analyst media circle, even people in my own group, that y'all are so quick to just give Jacksonville the division like they barely won some of these games that they won last year? Barely. Barely. You're not accounting for the other teams in the division maybe getting better. Like, for most of these TV folks, they can't be objective. Like, me as a Titans fan, I can acknowledge Jacksonville getting better, but I know what my team is. You're not finna sit here and disrespect, or we didn't do anything and da-da-da-da. Just because it wasn't pretty does not mean we didn't fix it. We fixed for the most part, we fixed that line, and then Nicholas Petit Frere went and started to be a jackleg. For the most part, we fixed our line. My wide receivers, that's the only unproven part. My defense has gotten scarier. You people who keep giving Jacksonville the goddamn division in April, May, June, July, whatever the heck month this is, are not being objective. You're not considering that the other teams in the division have gotten better, especially mine. And unlike, I really hate to say it, the Colts, they lost some pieces too. We'll go into them in just a second. But y'all disregard everybody else because for whatever reason, in order to hand the Golden Sunshine Boys the division. And it's straight up blasphemous because at this point, we need to be a little bit more objective. We need to be a little bit real about ourselves. Y'all, they were at full health. And they struggled to beat my injured team. And they were healthy. And they struggled. So if my team stays healthy, and if we really go back on it, what really happens, bro? So y'all are so quick to give this team a division. Ain't a lick of football being played. Trevor Lawrence is still Trevor Lawrence, and he throws a lot of picks. So y'all are saying that, all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence is going to stop putting the ball in other teams' hands. No, he's not. He's not going to stop. And just like the Jaguars have better pieces, all the teams in the division have better pieces. I still have a pretty decent secondary. My defensive line has gotten 10 times better. Y'all still can't really stop the run. And you know what I'm working with in the running back position. So what's the real issue about giving Jacksonville the ding-dang-on division so early? What's the real issue? Why can't we give anybody else the respect? But don't give my team the respect because we play better when we're disrespected. So you can hop off the bandwagon right now. Like, that's just how it is. I don't understand it. And I understand what Calvin Ridley is. I know what Calvin Ridley is. But is Calvin Ridley going to save you from Trevor Lawrence throwing a pick? No. Or taking a bad sack? No. Is Calvin Ridley going to stop your defensive line from getting ran over? No, he's not. So please miss me with that. Next, we got some way too early hot takes. And this one has been kind of circulating for a minute about whether or not it's time for Bill Belichick to be on the hot seat. Now, here's my personal opinion on it. I don't think he needs to face that hot seat. I do think that it's time to have a slight conversation about life post-Belichick. It needs to be started or had in more quantity. He isn't the same without Brady. He was average before and he's average now. They might need to start looking at the words retirement. And with the way that the game is moving today, Bill Belichick and some of his coaching decisions and practices have been archaic and absolute cataclysmic failures. And I meant every single last one of those words. Like having a defensive coordinator run an offense. And you wonder why poor Mac was just yelling at people on the sideline. Because they didn't know what they were doing. And it was stupid. But, like I said, I don't think Bill Belichick needs to face the hot seat. I think he needs to retire, though, but it is what it is. Now, Russell Wilson being a system quarterback. This is something that I don't kind of want to hop on about. Like, when I mean by system quarterback, I mean there's nothing special. Like, you take him out that system, and he's going to suffer. But removed him from Seattle, and he struggled. But a huge part of this what happens to do with the incompetency of Nathaniel Hackett. But if he doesn't rebound from last year, which I fully expect for him to do in some form, this is a conversation that we're going to have to revisit. If we're being completely honest here. Because things that I need to see happen with Russ is that we're going to need less misreads. We're going to need less dumb turnovers. We're going to need more maneuverability and escapability. And we're going to need less corniness and showboating. Keep that on Instagram, not on the football field. Keep that on Instagram. Lord. And another little mini tangent. So when do we call Mr. Josh Allen overrated? Like, I've been talking for about 40 minutes about football, but I've had a lot to say today. How many times do we need to see the same thing over and over again to come to a realization that Josh Allen is not what he's hyped out to be? We get on Dak Prescott about his turnovers. What about Josh Allen and his turnovers? Dak, at least, let's see. For most of Dak's picks, they're not dumb. They're not, what the heck? Well, yes, they are. When Dak throw a pick and when Josh Allen throw a pick, it's two different things. When I figure out how to expand on that, because you're going to see how I'm going on that. Give me a few minutes. But we'll circle back to that point. But they built this team around him for the most part. They built up that defense. You went and got a receiver. You don't use your running back, and you run through your quarterback, which is pretty much why we're here at this point as well. But you have solid coaching. You lost Brian Dable, and his play dropped off. But he's been plagued with turnovers and reckless play for years. And I'm like, if we're going to be completely honest, like, what's the reason why they can't get over the Cincy in the Bengals hump and the Chiefs hump? What's the biggest reason? Oh, Josh Allen. There's a reason why Stephon Diggs acted a butt. Acted a flat-out fool. There was a reason. He is not all what y'all crack him out to be. If you can get him on his butt and get him rattled, you can have your way with him. I don't know what the whole hoopla is around Josh Allen. If we're being completely honest, he's not that great. And he's not cute. And he turned the ball over too much. I don't get it. And now we turn our attention to the NBA, where we kind of got a lot going on, but not really. We all know Dame and Harden will really generate buzz, but it's a waiting game. So tune in for Laker talk and a catch up on some recent transactions. Without further ado, let's get it. All right. So first, we're going to start off with going through some of the recent transactions that have gone on since last week. Not all, some of my thoughts. The Magic Wave Center Bobo. And my thing, and yes, that is that man's name. He's Sudanese. I think he's South Sudanese. But he's Manute Ball's son. But question. My biggest question is, does he even want to take basketball seriously? Like, he's been passed around and doesn't seem up for trying to improve his skills. Out of 123 games played, he hasn't even played Out of 123 games played, he started on only 35 of them. He was really only slightly played up to par his rookie season with Denver and has been on a slope ever since. He did play 70 games this year and did start like 23 of them. And he did average 21 minutes per game when he did play. He showed some flashiness of what he could be if he tried hard enough. But a poor work ethic spreads like a wildfire. Please ask Zion. We're not going to talk about Zion today because I've said everything that I've needed to say about Zion. Because what Zion lacks is the will. Zion is lazy as heck. You don't want to eat right. The only extremities you're worried about working out is your lower extremities. You love the game of basketball, but you don't like the work that goes into it to make sure you stay around this game for a long time. And your head is not on the right. You're not focused. Zion is lazy and he's unfocused and he's undisciplined, and soon he needs to grow up. And I'm gonna leave that at that. Because it is what it is at this point. And then Lord. This is why Zion Williamson is on my most aggravating athletes list. Because it's like, for somebody who's my age, he might be a tad bit older than me. Not much. But you worked your whole life to get to the NBA, right? And then you get there, you're playing basketball, but you don't want to maintain yourself so that you can play basketball, do something that you love for a long time. You want to be lazy. You want to be unfocused. You want to be undisciplined. I'm so sick and tired of Zion. I can't wait till the Pelicans trade him. So trade him to basketball purgatory and let him grow up there. I'm tired. Oh, but I kind of got on a tangent. But the 76ers wouldn't mind keeping Harden, but they're still working on a trade. He did opt into his contract. I think that if he stays in Philly this year, plays well, it'll increase his trade value. And it is his best chance to win a championship if we're being real. Malik Beasley to the Bucks is a solid pickup option. Is a solid pickup for depth purposes, and he's a cheap option. Minnesota gave Anthony Edwards his bag, but because of how weird the roster is constructed, they won't be doing much with it. Atlanta traded away some youth and a pack of crackers for Patty Mills. One thing about Atlanta Hawks is that the Atlanta Hawks front office has to be some of the most incompetent group of people I have ever covered. Because what? And I live here. The Hawks front office has always been doing questionable, shady stuff. questionable decisions. Like they fired Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan was not the fault. Was not the problem. Trae Young was the problem. But whatever. And Portland plans on keeping Bella. Hey. Sorry about that, but Portland plans on keeping Matisse Thybulle, who is a solid young player. Portland is trying to rebuild. They're going to offload Dame for whatever they can get for him, the best option. We're going to talk about Dame in just a second, because I'm so sick and tired of Damian Lillard. That's a whole nother 10-minute tangent that I can go on, but we'll save that for the end of the show. And next, we're going to talk about what's going on around the NBA and some other stuff. Like the anti-flop thing. The league has tested and approved an in-game penalty on flopping, where it is now an unsportsmanlike but not ejectable conduct technical and a shot. So you get to shoot a text. Players are not going to like this. I just wanted to make that very clear. The players are not going to like this anti-flop thing. And it's going to be quite hilarious. And you know what else is going to be quite hilarious? Seeing these players find another way to flop, because they're going to do it. Players will find a way to sell a call and get away with it, which, again, will be funny to watch, because the way this rule is separated, the player can try to flop all they want to. If the officials think that they're flopping, you're going to get a tech for it. So you could think you're slick. Flop, tech. But I understand the purpose of it. Like, they're trying to get this foolishness out the game. This is a basketball game, not the School of Dramatics. This is the NBA, not the Tony Awards. We play basketball. We're not actors. But I think they're trying to get that out the game. And we're trying to get, because they're teaching people how to flop. And why are we teaching how to flop? And then people can get hurt when you flop. So I think for the betterment of the game, yes, it does need to be. I like the anti-flop thing. It's going to be quite comical to watch them try to get a hold on all this flopping. But why they do this now when LeBron is about a few years away from retiring? That's my question. Next, I'm going to talk about some cold duos. Like, when I mean cold duos, I mean duos who are in trouble of being split up if they, as a team, don't improve. And number one, right off the bat, we got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. They've been together for how many years? How many seasons? And have done next to nothing but choke and be the frost that they are. Paul George can't stay healthy. Curious George can't stay healthy to save his life. Load managing Kawhi also has repeated injuries as well. Can't stay healthy to save his life. And also, Curious George doesn't show off well in the playoffs either. So we know that the time's ticking. I feel like, and we already know that they've at least attempted to come up off with Paul George. This duo, I knew this duo wasn't going to work. I knew it wasn't going to work. Bella. I knew it wasn't going to work. Because Kawhi doesn't play a lot. Well, I mean, he do play a lot. He load manages, so he pick and choose when he wants to play. And then when Paul George, half the time he's not available due to injury. And when he is available, if it's the playoffs, we go from playoff P and pushing P to pushing the L and pandemic P. They've barely played together. Why are they even still together on the same team at this point? They've barely played together. They don't have a lot of playoff success. The Clippers are who we thought they are, which is frauds. And then you get Russell Westbrook. And, like, yeah, that helps. But your 2 stars are frauds. Especially that Paul George. Now, Paul George, I do give him a little bit of a pass. His career has been marred by injury. But as far as you calling yourself playoff P and you ain't done nothing in the playoffs, that ain't very player of you, player. Keep it P. Keep it pushing. Joel Embiid and James Harden. Now, this duo is on its dying legs, whether we like it or not. And partially due to coaching, mental fragility, and just not showing up when it matters most. It was definitely doomed right after they peaked. Like, I don't know. I don't know if Joel Embiid was the issue. I don't know if James Harden was the issue. But we know what James Harden is when he gets to the playoffs. He just disappears. He goes, poof, be gone. Will the real James Harden stand up? Because he shows what he's capable of doing, carrying a team and being effective in the regular season. Come playoff time, he has no interest in playing in the playoffs. So it seems. But yeah, that tandem has been the whole Embiid Harden tandem has been kind of ruined by subpar coaching. Joel Embiid is soft as Charmin Ultra soft tissue. James Harden goes Casper when you need him the most. And they overpaid Tobias Harris by a lot. But that has nothing to do with James Harden, and I don't know why I mentioned that. But that's one of their issues. So they're on the verge of collapsing. And Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. And listen to me when I say this. Because Brunson isn't the issue at all. Julius Randle is. And I'm admittedly wrong to think that he would do something worthwhile in the playoffs. Sadly, I was mistaken. And what we saw was an absolute travesty. Poor shooting, lack of will, poor body language, quitting. And it spread like a wildfire. He has to go. For this team to take any steps in the right direction, Julius Randle has got to go. Julius Randle pulled a DeAndre Ayton, and I don't like that. That's just being soft as dog diarrhea. And I have 3 dogs. I know what that looks like. That's just being soft. Like, come on now. Now on the Laker talk. And this is a short segment of Laker talk, but here's some of my realistic expectations for my team. They will be a better team earlier in the season than they were last year when we started 2-10. We did get some pieces and we kept our core 2 together. We didn't do anything stupid, which I'm extremely glad for. Rob Pelinka been over there in that office cooking, and I ain't mad at it. We should be a playoff team if all the chips fall right, and not a play-in team. Playoff. I'm not saying we're going to be top 2. I'm saying we're going to be top 5. Any needs or concerns, I still think that we need a shooter. I still think we need more shooters and more consistent perimeter defenders. But a big one is definitely shooters, especially 3-point shooters. And another thing to note, LeBron and Anthony Davis could be on the verge of breaking up after this upcoming season. Even though me personally, I highly doubt it. And now for Jori's timeout session. And Damian Lillard has officially gotten on my last blink nerve. And I meant every single last one that was supposed to be an expletive. But I meant fill in the blank. He's getting on my nerve now. That and some details revolving around season 3. So, without further ado, let's get into Jori's timeout session. Now, honestly, and I know there's other people who think like me, I want this whole Damian Lillard saga to end. Like, just take it, put it in the submersible, and send it right on back down to the Titanic. The whole saga. Just take it and let it implode on itself. I'm tired of hearing about it. Hurry up and get him out of Portland and down to Miami so he can shut up. Him and his agents can be quiet. We don't have to hear anything else coming from Damian Lillard's camp or from Portland, considering how they're going to move him. Now they're saying it's going to take months. If y'all don't hurry up and get him out of Portland so we don't have to hear this crap anymore. Because it's like a clown show at this point. Damian, you just signed a ding-dang-on contract extension last season, and now you want out? And now apparently you just want to go to Miami. If I'm the Portland Trailblazers, my petty behind is sending him to basketball purgatory and washing my hands with him and gone. Because what are you going to do if it don't happen? Pout, lose money, quit, boo-hoo. Grow up. Grow up. Because you don't have a no-trade clause in your contract. You're over here talking about, I'm going to be very unhappy because if I don't go to Miami. What are you going to do? Pout, sit on the bench and pout like a 3-year-old? What are you going to do? You don't have a say. You really don't have a say. Even though you do, but you don't. Like, grow up. And the thing is, this is a hot mess that Dame and his camp pretty much started. Because they started it by going back and forth whether or not he wanted to be in Portland or not. And then when you said, I want out, now the front office is behind the 8 ball. You idiot. You could have been out had you been timely instead of being shady and trying to play with people. You act like the general public didn't already know you wanted to get out of Portland. Because, like I said last week, you're not that slick. You think that you're slick and you're talking that you're saying something when you're saying these things that you're saying. You're not saying much and you're not as slick as you think that you are. Like I said last week, we all knew that you wanted to come out of Portland. You just decided to wait around and procrastinate and play with the general public. Just wait around and procrastinate, and now it's going to take months because the prime time to trade you passed. You idiot. You tried to play with anybody else, but now you're playing yourself. Because you wanted to be a diva. Like, come on, Damian. Like, this is not... Can we be a little bit more professional? And that's why I'm with the Portland Trailblazers when I say, if it takes months, it's going to take months. Damian don't run nothing over in Portland. He don't run nothing but his mouth. Keep it cute and professional. Because and people on the media are talking about if he's disgruntled and go somewhere else. What is he going to do? That's a lot of money to forfeit, and we all know what happens when you sit out. You don't get that money back. I don't think Dame is dumb enough to give money back and to forfeit a paycheck. So if he's just that unhappy if it's not Miami, what is he going to do about it? Sit and pout like a toddler? Sit with his hands crossed on the bench? Not play? Not go to practice because he's mad? Boo-hoo. I don't like my job, and I'll still go. I mean, that's a different situation, but still. Like, it's really just annoying. Like, we've done this whole back and forth thing for the past, month and a month and a half? A month and a month and a half. Month and a half. Whatever. It feels like it's been about a year we've been talking about Damian getting out of Portland. Whether he wants to be in Portland or not. I want to stay in Portland. Or I want to go win a championship. I don't want to be a part of rebuild. I want to stay in Portland. What do you want to do? Figure it out and hush. Well, he done figured it out a little bit too late. And now he has his destination set out. If I'm the Portland Trailblazers, I'm like, y'all see this guy? He gonna sign a paper last year talking about he gonna be here for the next 4 years, and this year he want out, and he wants to go to Miami. I'm sending him as furthest away. If I was the front office, I'm sending him as further away from Miami as possible. I'm sending him to Alaska. Even though they don't have a team in Alaska. But you see the point. I'm going to send him to Toronto. Send him to Canada. Since you want to be in Miami. Like, honestly. Damian Lillard has been getting on my last nerve for the past 3 weeks. 3 weeks. It feels like it's been longer than that. It might have been longer than that. But it doesn't matter. He's been triggering me for about 3 weeks. And I wish this would all end. All the drama from this whole situation can go in a submersible and go right back to the bottom of the ocean. And let it implode on itself. I'm tired of dealing with it. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of hearing about Damian Lillard. Dame. The next time someone says Dame's name, give me $1. I'd have $1 million by now. I'm so sick and tired of Damian Lillard and the foolishness. It's beyond me. It is beyond me. Period. Next. So, we're going to talk about Season 3. Just a little bit of what to look forward to in Season 3. And we're talking about the NFL regular season. I'm sorry. We'll be bringing back Jori's jacked up tiers of the NFL and Hot Hands, Hot Takes. So, plus we'll be having live video shows as well. They'll be available soon as well. Plus, go follow Sports Empire Network on Facebook and on YouTube. We've got some things cooking in the lab in store for August and moving forward. But like I said, it'll be something that you don't want to miss. So go follow Sports Empire Network on Facebook and on YouTube. Go follow me on YouTube, which is Jori Sports Stories. Like, comment, subscribe, share the stuff. And whatnot. We've reached the conclusion of this week's episode of Jori Sports Stories. As always, I'm your host, Jori, and I hope you liked what you heard. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Click that bell notification. Make sure you're getting all notifications. And feel free to share the podcast and let's grow the audience. Tune in next week for a bonus episode. But tune in next week as we cover the WNBA once again and more NBA offseason rumors and buzz. And we start getting into training camp, and I'll have more of the Season 3 nuggets and reveals. So, without further ado, I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening today. I appreciate it. Follow us on social media. Share the podcast. Grow the audience. And I'll see y'all next week for a brand new episode of Jori Sports Stories. Have a nice night, y'all.